Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our last session of the day, where, as you can see, some familiar faces. We're holding a panel with Isabel and Darren, where we are going to talk around some of the themes that we've heard today, some of our personal experiences within the workplace and without outside of the workplace. So this is your opportunity really to ask us anything, and I hope I've got consent from the panelists that we're open to any questions. So please think of any questions you want to ask us, whether it be what you've heard today or advice for the future. But first, let's introduce our panelists. So I'll start with you, Isabel. If you can remind us, for the people that watched your amazing presentation, who you are, and introduce yourself to those that didn't.
Sure. My name is Isabel. I'm an international tax apprentice at EY, and my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. And Darren?
Yeah, perfect. My name is Darren Broad. I'm a future training solicitor at Clyde & Co. in 2023. I'm a final year undergraduate in law at the University of Law, and my pronouns are he, him.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I feel like with Darren, we've got a bit of a hybrid. We've got University of Law and Clyde & Co. So we've almost got two things covered on the panel here. So I guess really what I wanted to start off with was your personal journey into sort of how you got to where you got to now. And given that this is an LGBTQ plus event, talking around, I guess, your journey of coming out, I'm going to deny really the fact that I am the oldest one on this panel, but I certainly am. But I'm 32 years of age, and I look back and I think, gosh, it wasn't that long ago since I came out, but I came out at 18 years of age. And back then, back in my day, there was no events like this. There was nothing that you could go to and say, oh, actually, is there people like me in a professional environment that I can find out information from or network with and share details? And I guess I also didn't go to college or university, so I kind of went from home to work and came out at work. So I missed the bit where I got to sort of share experiences and my identity with people. So I'd love to hear from both of your perspectives on sort of your journey. And did you, and we heard from our last speaker, Bobby, sort of discussing going in and out of the closet. Did that happen for you? And Darren, if you're okay to start us off with that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my journey of coming out, I came out, I guess, a bit younger than others when I was 15, which is scary to think that was only 2015 back then. But I actually came out, I used to be in the Royal Air Force Air Cadets, which I guess is quite traditional in military environment. But it was actually on a camp, so I was away somewhere on the south coast. And I guess it must have just been quite an emotional time, and I ended up, texting my mum and coming out. So that's my bit of an odd coming out story. But I guess definitely in the cadets, whilst I felt open to come out to my close bubble, it definitely wasn't like a wider environment where I felt comfortable doing that. And then moving forward, obviously that time I was in school, and then sort of moving forward to college. I definitely was out, but it was just that stage in my life. It was one of those things where it was like, I'll tell you if you ask me, but I'm not gonna tell you, and I'm not gonna try and actively act gay or camp, or I'm just gonna come to college and I'm gonna go home, and if you find out, that's fine. And then definitely university was I felt more open to be me. And then obviously moving forward to Clyde & Co, I'm not actually working there yet. But during my vacation scheme, it was definitely sort of, I'm going to be me, and if you don't like that, well, then that's not the firm for me. Tough. And I really got to that stage where I was like, tough now. And I wore, on my vacation scheme, I wore like a pussy bow blue shirt, and I was very me. Clyde & Co clearly didn't mind that, but I was like, I'm going to wear this, and if you don't like it, tough. So that's kind of my journey over the last couple of years.
Thank you. Love that. Love a statement shirt. Isabel, what about you?
You absolutely need to tell me where you got that shirt. It sounds amazing. Yeah, according to my friends, I came out to them when I was 11. I don't remember, but yeah, I was kind of always out to my friends, but I actually only came out to my parents because of my apprenticeship. I moved out just before I turned 18, so I could start my job when I was 18. And they took me out for lunch to celebrate me moving into my new flat. And I had a big cry in a beefeater, and I told them I was gay. I think maybe that's one of the things that is kind of particular about being bisexual, is that I could just bring home the boys that I was seeing and not bring home the girls that I was seeing, and kind of give them the impression that I was still straight until I turned 18. Unfortunately, about 3 weeks later, when I went into the office, I was very keen to, I suppose, be the model of what I thought a tax advisor should look like, which was someone who acted very straight, wore a lot of M&S standard issue women's dresses, and didn't share much about their personal life. And thankfully, over the last few years, I've become much more comfortable with my team. I feel like a lot of my colleagues are my friends. And slowly, over the last year and a half or so, I've started to share more about myself, including my sexuality.
Thank you. It was a theme as well throughout some of the discussions today, which is almost like that relief. You know, it's that bit where you hold it in such a secret, and I certainly used to lie, and I'm an awful liar. Like, my partner right now will say, "You're Chris, you're lying." I'm like, "No, I'm not," because my ears go up and I get a little and it's when you start to just have a bit of sigh of relief. You know, your shoulders drop and the sort of stress in your jaw like stops, because you think, oh, actually, yeah, I can just be myself. But the topic of bisexuality is interesting, because often within the LGBTQ plus space, although we are becoming more inclusive, there are sometimes, you know, common themes, I guess, and I'm going to say white gay men, that kind of start the LGBT network groups at work, and then they might diversify a little. So just, I know it's a topic that we kind of touched upon before, both with you, Isabel, and with Darren, but I just wanted to talk around the sort of diversity within the space, within our community, and your thoughts on that, on how we can be better, and what more we can be doing to include others outside of the G, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to hear from Bobby what BP are doing for trans people who come out at work, and putting a program in place to help their teams educate themselves and get used to that transition and really support that person at work. So I would love to see that replicated in every single workplace. In terms of specifically including bisexual people, I mean, it was great to see what EY did for Bi Visibility Day. They sent round packs of things that we could actually put on LinkedIn and share. And there was an event that we could join during our lunch where people shared their experiences, and just acknowledging those individual days where we celebrate the different parts of our community. For example, I know Trans Visibility Day is coming up. I think are a way of really making those individual groups feel included in those networks and those movements.
Yeah, it's definitely if you could take that template and you could apply that and say, right, here's a way to celebrate, you know, the different parts of our identity within our group, I think it would go a long way to start that conversation. Darren, what about you? What do you think about the sort of, I guess it is to a degree, erasure of certain parts of our community when we hold specific events and we don't feature then the L, the B, and the Q and the T, and yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things that sort of progresses over time. It's just sort of like society has got to this point where it's like gay people are fine. You know, we've come far where sort of gay people are accepted, and it's just like, you know, trans and bi have almost been sort of left behind, or sort of it's almost like a next step. It's like, okay, we accept gay people, and now it's time to move on and look at these other issues. But yeah, there just is there has been such a big focus on sort of, you know, gay and lesbian, and that's sort of recognised. But yeah, I think bisexual and, you know, being transgender is sort of misunderstood within the community. And yeah, I think it's just about, you know, having that focus and being inclusive at events as well. I'm not sure there's much more to add in terms of what Isabel said. I'm not sure what Clyde & Co are doing specifically because I haven't been at the firm. But it's just about recognizing everyone is equally valid and not necessarily, I don't think, you know, having events for just a G or a B or an L, or, you know, just events for gay people are unnecessarily inclusive. I think it should be LGBT events in total and having all these things as equally valid.
Yeah, well, it touches upon allyship, right? So we
Yeah.
often ask people who are not LGBT to be allies, but then we've got to be better in our own community of being a bi ally, a trans ally, for example, and actually speaking up within our own community, because I think a lot of people have the assumption that we are perfect because we are a marginalized group. So therefore, of course, we must be the most accepting of other marginalized people. Sometimes we know that's not the case. A couple of questions coming in. I'm going to come on to them shortly. But when you were looking for prospective employers and looking for your career routes, how important was it for you that you saw visibility of there being either a network group or some affiliation with our community so that you could feel comfortable? Was it a big thing for you in the recruitment process, and were you looking, like, actively looking on websites and doing research, or was it sort of a nice to have for you both? And Darren, I'll start with you if that's okay.
I think for me, it was probably, I was so set on becoming a trainee solicitor, and I think I've had quite a lot of experiences where, you know, being out is, you know, like I said, the cadets, and, you know, where I wasn't, it was almost sort of a nice to have. I think for me, because I was so set on becoming a trainee solicitor, and that if I didn't get it, I'd had so many experiences in the past where I necessarily wasn't fully open. That's just what I was used to, almost. Do you know what I mean? But it definitely wasn't something I didn't not look at all. And I definitely did put firms first that had an actual representation of these things, and not just had a representation, but were doing things in that space, and that it wasn't just a line on a website. Yeah.
Isabel, what about for you? Was it a big thing that you were looking for?
I wish it had been. I really do, and I'm grateful that I'm now working somewhere where it is such a big focus. But to be honest, my impression of the industry that I wanted to go into was that lots of people were still in the closet, and that it also wasn't a very nice industry for women. Like, around the time that I was applying, there was the scandal around PwC being sued because they were forcing women to wear high heels. I didn't see a single female senior person, whether it was a partner or like managers, during the recruitment process for any of the big four. That's feedback that I gave consistently, but it just wasn't in my mind that these places that I perceived as not being very inclusive would have thoughts about that at all. Now I'm within these organizations and have a better grasp on their marketing and their intranet, as well as things that are accessible to us as employees. It's absolutely something I'm looking for going forward.
Yeah, because it's very interesting, because some people look for that, right? And they're actively searching, and they're going to networking events, and they're going onto these things to see actually what are you doing around this space. But for some people, it is, well, I need to find a role and a job, and it might be a nice to have. But it's when you start looking for it that you realize how many organizations are doing something to support LGBT people, either internally, or they have an affiliation with a network or a body or a accreditation where they can be challenged themselves. So it can be a pleasant surprise. And I would say we've heard a lot of our panelists today talk around you interviewing the company as much as they are interviewing you. And someone has asked the question, how early do you think you should be out at work? And do you think the recruitment process is too early? So whoever jumps in first, I'm going to let you answer. I'm going to stop going to one or the other. What do you think?
Darren, do you want to go first? I don't want to jump in.
I saw your mic off, so I thought you were going to go. Go for it.
Sure. Well, I think it really is a personal choice, right? Like a lot of people will ask you to share your, sorry, a lot of companies, I mean, will ask you to share your protected characteristics for their own internal monitoring, so they can make sure that they are making inclusive hires and they're not just hiring one kind of person. But that's absolutely not shared with the person that's hiring you. It's illegal to make decisions on that basis, right? I think I would definitely bring it up if you want to ask for specific accommodations. So I think something that was mentioned earlier in the day was that actually LGBT people are more likely to have mental health problems, either because of the stress of hiding their identity can sometimes bring this out. But if you think you will be happier working somewhere with a better mental health provision, so for example, EY has therapists on call that you can use for free as part of our health offering, then I think you should be bringing those up. And yeah, definitely interview the firm back, ask if they have networks for LGBT people. But yeah, I wouldn't feel pressured to share that during the recruitment process if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'd echo that. I'd say if it is, however, something you want to bring up, you're just not sure how to do it, or you're a bit unsure, but it's something you want to do, then I just say, yeah, bring it up. Go for it. There shouldn't be any sort of prejudice. Of course, it might be something you're concerned about. I think the way I went about it with law firms is on my applications, it was generally I'd pop something in one of the questions or something like that. So in the last year of me being in the cadets, I was part of their LGBT working group, which was training around the country. So I'd use that, within the Air Cadets as my experience and drop that in. It's just a way of letting people know subtly without me sort of having to, turn up to a vacation scheme or an interview and be like, hi, so I'm gay, what does your firm do? Do you know what I mean? So obviously, because people, you might want to tell people, but not right off the bat like that. So yeah, if it's something you want to do, you can drop it in subtly and just do it when you feel ready.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. Don't force it. Don't ever force yourself to reveal something of yourself that you're not comfortable with. But at the same time, if it is something that matters to you, then ask, and it doesn't have to be, well, tell me what you're doing right now, because otherwise I'm not going to join. It can be, oh, I'd love to hear more about what your diversity and inclusion committees are doing, particularly around the LGBTQ plus space. I'd love to find out more. And that way, then you can sense check. And like Sam said from Accenture, they should know whether they are involved in those committees or not. They should have some idea and inclination into what they're doing around that space. So yeah, I think if you're getting a good vibe from the panel, absolutely, why not ask the question? We're not saying that you have to out yourself. You can ask around D&I generally. A few great questions here, so I'm just going to go straight in and and ask them. The first one I'm going to ask is, do you feel like you've ever been treated differently by colleagues, either positively or negatively, from since you came out? Thoughts? I know I've got something that I could say in terms of my experience, but it's your panel, not mine. Isabel, go on.
Only positively, really. So after I came out, one of my other colleagues, who was one of my peers, another person at level 1, also came out as bisexual because I'd come out. And it turns out we watch the same TV shows and like a lot of the same musical artists that are probably stereotypically associated with queer women. Girl in Red has really been ruined by TikTok, but anyway. And now she and I are so much closer because we both came out. I don't think any of my colleagues have treated me differently in terms of allocating work or anything like that. It's just, yeah, another thing they know about me now.
I think only because I haven't actually properly joined the firm yet, I don't really have the best experience of this. But I guess I can offer my experience of my part-time role as a supervisor for Lush, which, if any of you have been in there, it's a very inclusive company. So nothing negative from that, but I won't waffle because I haven't joined the firm yet. But nothing on my vacation scheme either. It was, yeah, all positive.
I think generally people don't treat you differently. It would be very hard to find someone that gets work taken away from them or is excluded from projects. You know, it does happen, but I think it's becoming more and more rare as the years go on. And overall, I would say you're probably only going to be met with positives. And sometimes those positives might seem a bit forced, because someone might say, oh, my son's gay, but actually by allowing you to give a little bit of your life to someone else, it allows them to also share with you. And I completely agree, Isabel. I've been in situations where I think, gosh, I'm not going to tell this person. And the biggest one, I'll tell you a very quick story. When I worked in Gloucestershire, I worked for Gloucestershire College, and it's like a massive engineering and industrial county. And I had to go to the cricket because we were hosting a number of clients, and I was dreading it because I was sat next to this person who was really stereotypically the most masculine man you could ever meet. You know, big, broad, like sort of kind of wore overalls to a cricket match. Like that's how sort of masculine he was. And I was petrified of like sitting next to him because he kept asking me questions like, oh, so, you know, what do you do on the weekend? What, you know, how long have you worked for the college? Like all of this stuff. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to tell him. So I was like, oh yeah, I've worked for the college for 2 years. I've got a partner. I've been with him for 3 years. And do you know what? He said, that's amazing. My daughter-in-law's gay. And I thought, I was judging him thinking he's going to be so awful and take it the wrong way. And do you know what? It was the best kind of client entertainment that I've ever done. I didn't watch the cricket because I'm not into sports, but it meant that we could have a proper conversation. So I would say, you know, you're probably only going to be met with positive interactions after that. If at any point you ever got something negative, then that's where you go to HR. You know, that's why you go to places like the LGBT network group internally, because you can share stories and share that, you know. And if you are ever experiencing negative things in the workplace, then absolutely escalate it. You know, don't sit there in silence. It kind of leads on to another question, which is, what would your advice be when this person said when you get it wrong, but I'm going to sort of generalize it, when colleagues get it wrong, when they say the wrong thing or they do the wrong thing. And I'm sure we've all had that 2-second pause where someone's like, oh, I know a gay person down the road who's I used to go to school with. You know, people often say the most unusual things when you tell them. But what would your advice be to someone who maybe gets it wrong or misgenders your partner or assumes your sexual orientation is something other than what it is? Darren, I'll come to you first.
Okay, I don't know who you're going to first. I think the general stance is, as long as it's not coming from a place of, you know, hate or bigotry or whatever, there's horrible words, as long as it's a genuine mistake, just, it's just about explaining to that person, just, you know, talking to them about why that actually may be, you know, offensive or not correct or, you know, abusive, and just talking them through why and the reasons why and what they can do to improve and, you know, what steps they can put in place, whether that is, you know, misgendering or using the wrong pronouns or that sort of thing. And yeah, like, you know, 99 times out of 100, you know, no one's going to argue at you. Yeah.
Thank you. Isabel?
I tend to take my lead from this on one of my friends who came out as trans when we were 17, and he came out as a trans man in a girls' school. And so our teachers were always getting it wrong and coming into class and saying, hello, ladies. And, you know, if it becomes a repeated problem, I think you have to take someone aside. And as you say, Darren, explain why you would rather they didn't say a certain thing and just gently correct them, especially if it's not coming from a place of trying to disrespect the way you want to be treated. But I think quite often you just want it over with quickly and you don't want it made a big deal of, especially when it comes to misgendering transgender colleagues and things like that. You just want them to correct themselves quickly and move on. And certainly that's what I've tried to do in the past when people misgender my partner, probably just to save them and be a bit of embarrassment. But no, your comfort and them respecting your pronouns and your sexuality is the most important thing. And so I think, yeah, absolutely escalate that where they repeatedly make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's nipping it in the bud, which is not shutting them down. I think, you know, everyone's got the opportunity to get things wrong and then learn from it. You know, and am I perfect? I work in diversity and inclusion. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Have I said things in the past that I absolutely cringe at now? 100% I have. But it's understanding, okay, I've made a mistake and I'm sorry, but I'm going to learn from it. And I'm going to do my very, very best to not do it again. And I think sometimes within our community, it's not necessarily our job to educate people, but when it happens and it doesn't come from a place of malice or aggression or negativity, but it just comes from someone slipping up or making a mistake, you know, I think we can all afford someone the explanation to say, actually, no, you know, my partner is female, or actually, no, I don't identify that way. This is how I identify. And then I think if it continues to be a challenge, like you both said, you know, that's when you escalate up and you seek others. But I'll bring it back to us then also championing that. You know, if I heard someone misgender Isabel's partner, then it's my responsibility as well to step up and say, no, actually, their partner is XYZ. So I feel a lot of organizations have that in place. They have ally programs. You know, it used to be about 5-6 years ago, when an LGBT network group set up, there used to be like a provision for allies so that they could have a safe space to sort of get things wrong. And then also a safe space for LGBT people where they could network in a safe space. And over the years, those have come together, which I think is the right thing, because ultimately we need the majority to support the minority. But there still needs that time where, yeah, you need to be able to discuss and get things right and question things. So someone has asked for a specific bit of advice. I want to join a smaller size company. I want to join a smaller size company, but they don't seem to have the committees or support networks that have been mentioned. Do you think I should look for bigger companies that have these? Isabel, I'm going to come to you, and then I'm going to ask one final question because we're nearly at time.
Sure, I'll make it speedy in that case. I think we look for these networks like our Unity network at EY for two main reasons. The first is because it tells us that inclusion is at the heart of the culture of that company, but also to network with our peers. So what I would say is, if they don't currently have one of those networks, but you are confident that they do have diversity and inclusion in mind, and also if there's like a local or regional network that you can join that will also put on those networking events and fulfill that role, there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't join a smaller firm. And, you know, you can always be the first person to set it up.
Yeah, change comes from within sometimes, you know, and you've got to be that person. Okay, I will finish the panel as I have done with most of the speakers today. So I guess piece of advice you'd give yourself, and at what advice are you giving yourself and at what stage in your life? And then a piece of advice for the students watching moving forward. Isabel, I'll start with you and I'll end with Darren, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. So the piece of advice I'd give myself at 18 going into my job is that actually I can be myself. I can make the same jokes at work that I do with my friends, and no one's going to like me any less for it. And that's a lesson that's taken me a long time to learn. But please don't know it now. And I suppose the piece of advice that I would share with the students watching, if they're currently in the place where they're looking for jobs, is to do the research I didn't do, and actually find out about all of these amazing networks and initiatives and interview these interviewers back to find out if they have the kind of resources that you want them to have.
Amazing, thank you. And then Darren, you're going to close us off with your final words.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the piece of advice I give myself when I was younger, maybe not out or just coming out, is just to use the support around you, you know, because I had friends who were out. I had friends who I had absolutely no doubt would support me and not care whatsoever, but it was still like something I kept to myself, and it was like this issue. So just, you know, use the people around you that you know will support you, because I appreciate not everyone has, you know, that family network that may support them. And the piece of advice I give to everyone else, especially when you're looking to, you know, apply to these bigger companies, is don't be afraid to be yourself. Be yourself, and if that company or that institution or something has an issue with it, then, you know, it's not the place for you, and you've dodged a bullet. So just be yourself, and don't be afraid to be.
Amazing. Thank you both. I feel incredibly empowered after today. Thank you so much for everyone that has tuned in. Thank you, Isabel and Darren, for being our amazing panelists. As we've said, this is like one of many that RMP are running. So if you've enjoyed today, please tell your friends and peers to check out RateMyPlacement and follow them and go to their events, because they're doing such good things in this space. Thank you all so much. I will be back, hopefully. But Isabel, Darren, you can expect some connection requests from me. So thank you all so much and have a wonderful evening.